I grew up on Long Island, but it wasn't the part of Long Island that you read about in books or see in movies where all of the rich people live. It was a pretty poor part of Long Island, Central Islip, if you're familiar with it. I came home from seminary one time, and there had been new neighbors that moved in about two houses down from my parents. And I had heard about everything that was going on there. They were said to have been drug dealers, and some of the neighbors had called the police on them several times, and the police came in and raided their house, and I don't think they ever found anything. But one day I came home, and my parents' driveway, which usually had two or three cars in it, and one of them worked, suddenly was missing one. And I asked about the car, and I was told that my father had given it to the elder lady that lived two houses down. He had seen her walking back and forth to the store with groceries, which was pretty far walk. In the rain, in the cold, she'd walk to the store with groceries. And when I had heard that he had given them a car, I said, "Dad, don't you know that they're drug dealers? How could you have given her that car?" And my mother got angry with me. And she said, "I am so surprised at you. That is uncharitable." And for my mother, that was the strongest indictment that she could give her children, to be uncharitable. Because to be uncharitable is to be unchristian. And that was something that my mother would not have in her house. Charity is that fabric, it's the glue that holds the fabric together of the Christian community. It's a word that gets misused often. It's not the same kind of charity that the IRS talks about. And we think about it in different ways. We don't always like it, do we? We hear people say, "I don't want your charity, keep your charity." But charity comes from the Latin word caritas, which comes from the Greek word agape, which gets translated into love. The problem is, and I say this all the time, we use that word to describe so many affections that we have. We have one word, and if a word means anything, it really means nothing. So the same word we use to describe our affection for peanut butter is the word we use to describe our affection for our mother. The Greeks had at least 6 or 7 words that gets translated into the English love. Some we're familiar with. We're familiar with the idea of Philos, that brotherly love, Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. It's the love that we have for our friends. We're familiar with Eros, which we're going to get ready to celebrate on the 14th of February. It is that romantic love that we share with our spouse. And then there's agape love. It is the highest possible form of love, and it is referenced most often in the New Testament. It is the love that is first given by God. It emanates from God, and it is reflected back to God and evidenced in the love of a community. So it's not so much about how we feel about one another, but how we live with one another. It doesn't mean that we are overcome with emotion. It means that we provide for each other's needs. It means that we look out for one another. It means that we are kind and generous and aware of other people. That is the agape love that St. Paul is talking about. That's a reading that so often gets used for weddings that we just take it for granted when we hear it. We take it for granted that he's talking about the way that a husband and a wife should live together, but he's not at all. This comes directly after last week's reading where St. Paul is talking about all the gifts of the Spirit, but only one Spirit, and that the gifts are given for the sake of the body. It is the body of Christ that matters. It is the body of Christ that receives these gifts. And all the gifts ought to be used for the sake of the body of Christ. And so the beginning of this is immediately following. It's the same chapter, actually, where he says, so go ahead and strive after all those gifts. Go ahead and strive after the gifts of prophecy. Strive after the gifts of tongues. Strive after the gifts of wisdom. Strive after every spiritual gift, but I'm going to tell you a yet more excellent way. Because even if you had every single one of those spiritual gifts, but you do not have charity, you do not have agape, you do not have love, then you have nothing. It is all that really matters. It is the highest form and the highest call of a Christian. It is the long-standing tradition in the Christian church that the greatest sins are not sins against chastity. Those are the ones that bring us our greatest shame. But they're sins against charity. Because sins against charity erodes that glue that holds the body of Christ together. And so St. Paul tells the people of Corinth, even if you had every other spiritual gift, even if you had faith as to move mountains, but you do not have charity in your heart, then you have nothing. I get letters all the time, and sometimes phone calls, from people who visit us here at the Basilica. And over and over and over and over again, what I hear and what I read are people who say the same thing. I have never experienced a community that is so loving, so welcoming, so kind, so aware. You know, you could have the most beautiful cathedral in the world. You could have the greatest preacher in that most beautiful cathedral. You could have the greatest choir and most anointed music. But if you have not love, you have nothing. You know, there's a reason why bishops have such a difficult time moving white pastors from black parishes. And it's because we know what we have here. There is something that is so central to the identity of the Basilica because of who you are. There is that agape, that charity toward one another, that understanding of the glue that binds us. And whenever we leave here, I cannot go anywhere else. And I can try and restore it in another parish, but I never will be successful. There is something that is so organic about the love, the agape, the charity that we all experience in this place. And I see every white head going like this. Because it's why we're here. Because we know that we can't find this in our own churches. This is what Jesus was talking about. This is what Jesus was commanding us to. This is what Jesus showed us. And it's not even just here. You know, on Black History Month, it's a good idea to look back and see how we got to where we are today. And you can look back at the Montgomery bus boycott. Sometimes I think we're so used to hearing that story that it escapes us how heroic these people were. That agape, that sense of an idea that's bigger than me, that's bigger than even this one community. That there is something that binds us together, that we are united. And I will surrender my own comfort in order to bring something better for everyone. That's the agape that Jesus showed on the cross, the charity that Jesus showed on the cross. And it is the agape, the charity, the love that Jesus calls all of us to. That sense that I can surrender something in my life for the sake of someone else, and I may never meet that other person, but I know that it is the glue that holds us together, and if I can help that glue to hold, then I am living up to my mission. It is important, too, to really wonder in ourselves how long that glue will hold. Because the truth is, it used to be in the white churches, too. White churches used to have it. We used to have that sense of agape, that sense of belonging, that sense of oneness, that sense of a willingness to surrender something that I have for the sake of a bigger group. We used to have that, and we lost it. And we lost it because we stopped honoring it. We lost it because we stopped trying to strengthen it. We lost it because time after time after time, we sinned against it. Sins against that charity, that love, that agape are and always have been the greatest sins of the church. It's sins against agape that made the people of Nazareth rise up out of jealousy. And St. Paul says agape is not jealous. It was jealousy that made them rise up and take Jesus to a cliff to throw him off. There are sins against that sense of charity. And we have to change our idea about what that means. Don't keep your charity. I'll take it. I will take your charity. I will receive it. I will accept it. I do every day. It's why I love you. I love you because of the way that you love me, and not just me. I love you because the way that I can see you loving one another. I love you because of the way I see you show charity to people you don't even know. I love you because of the way you manifest that agape to me. I love you because you have accepted me, and in that acceptance you make me want to be better. That's what agape does. Once you are a part of it, once you are included in it, you never want to leave it. And you want to always be better. You want to always strengthen it. You want to bring something to that bond that holds us together. I love you because you love me. I love you because you're patient, because you're kind. I love you because you're not arrogant. I love you because you are not jealous. I love you because you are agape. I love you because of what you do, who you are, and the way you live. You have shown me what love means. You have shown me what charity is, and you have shown me how I ought to live. As we move forward, it is really important that we recognize, understand, respect, and protect that glue that holds us together. It is the greatest of all possible loves, and to sin against it is the greatest of all possible sins. In the end, there are three: faith, hope, and agape. And the greatest of these, the one that will never fail you, is agape. Love one another.